Have you ever felt like God's pulling you one way while your own personal ambitions and your desires and your own dreams are pulling you in a different direction?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a little vulnerable on the
Uh-oh.
podcast, right? A few months ago, I was talking to this girl, beautiful girl. She's an amazing girl, but God told me, and I felt it, and I don't even know if I told her she would believe me. What nobody understands is if you want to make any major life change, you have to win the small battle. Every single time that the battle comes across from you, that's how you're gonna change.
I'm sitting down with my little 19-year-old brother, Mark Anthony Medina,
What's up, guys?
and today we're here to talk about mindset, pressure, truth, and faith. Not from a figured it all out perspective, but from the front lines.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the lies that sound true but quietly wreck people, the real battles young men face today, and what actually helps when life gets heavy. So, Mark, thank you for joining me today.
Good evening, guys.
You know, at 19, who is it that you would say that you are becoming, and who are you actively trying not to become?
So at 19, I just finished high school, and actively not trying to be like everybody else is important to me simply because I've lived through it and I go against the grain very easily. So, looking up and looking forward, success has always been at the front of my mind, which is, what is success to me? Success is being happy in, making money, right? So, first of all, I take a lot of importance on not trying to be like everybody else because I want to stand out to people and I want to be somebody that people can look up to because there's nobody my age that's trying to be successful, if that makes sense.
Now, how would you say that that has shaped and molded your identity?
So my identity, I try to keep it very strong. You have to create a vision of yourself, right? And a lot of people understand that, but they don't really do it. You have to think about, who am I going to be in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years? And you have to reduce it to systems, right? Because we're not going to get anywhere if we're just looking at goals and we don't know how to get there. So if we can put systems in play at a young age, like 18, 19, 17, when you're still in school, then those systems will build you and mold you into a person. But you have to keep your identity strong to yourself. Yeah.
Mm. So when it comes to identity, like, I mean, you see a lot of people recently out of high school, and I mean, you grew up here, you got a lot of friends, a
Yeah.
lot of people in your sphere. Do you think most people your age are actively trying to build their own identity, or are they borrowing it from somewhere else?
So my biggest issue that I have with every single person my age is social media,
Mm,
right? It's the greatest asset and the devil's greatest asset at the same
mm.
time. So what social media does to the youth is horrible. At the same time, people like me can use it for good, right? But what happens is people will post what's best about their life, which is normal, it's part of the game. However, what happens is people try to be only good, and there is never going to be any good from only good.
Mm.
You have to have negatives in your life, and I've experienced that time and time again, where if you don't have any negatives in your life and your life is good, then you don't feel anything, honestly. And it needs to be a balance, right? Which is important. But what social media does is it takes away the negative majority of the time. So people are trying to be always good and they end up being unsatisfied and amongst many other things.
So along those lines, right? It's one of the
Mhm,
devil's greatest tools. He's called the Prince of the Airways for a reason. But
mhm.
so, what's a lie that you see a lot of people believing that sounds empowering and sounds true, but actually keeps them stuck?
A lie. That's a great question. I think that a lot of people believe that following their dreams blindly will get them to a good place. And that's 100% not true.
Mm,
Because if you have a dream, let's say you want to be a NASCAR driver, like I said earlier, having systems in place is more important than you'll ever just see following your dreams blindly, right? If you don't know how to get to where you want to go, then it's not going to work out. As simple as that. If you want to get to the next level playing college football, right? You can play football as much as you can in practice, but there needs to be systems in place so you can get to that next level. It's not just about the baseline and following your dreams blindly. I think that's important.
Mm. So tell me this. Do you think that the message that we hear a lot of people say, do you follow your own heart? Do you think that message of follow your own heart has helped or hurt the generation, and why?
Following your heart, I think I'm gonna go back to this topic a lot of times.
Yeah.
Social media is just in my generation so horrible,
Mm,
and honestly, because one thing that happens, especially with your heart and romantically, is you see everybody looks like a 10 out of 10 online and everybody's living a perfect relationship. Everybody has a perfect relationship with God online. Everybody has a perfect relationship with their friends online. And you don't really understand that there's issues here, right?
mm,
So people have issues. And when you follow your heart and say, oh, this girl might be X, Y, or Z, or this person, or whatever the scenario may be, if you follow your heart like that, sometimes it gets you into a bad scenario because people are led to believe something that's not true because of that,
mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. So to double click on that,
Mhm.
like obviously the image of perfection that a lot of people like this, it's this false unattainable goal
Mhm.
that a lot of people get sucked into the trap, and they're stuck trying to reach this thing that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
How have you seen that kind of play out with people that you know in your own sphere?
Well, it played out with me.
Mm,
I kinda lived at the beginning of my journey thinking that perfectionism was important, right? But as you kind of weave through the mud and you get into real work, right, you kinda have to understand that I have to be here. I have to be here in the present moment working and doing what I need to do right now because if I get caught up in any type of analytics or any type of future thinking, then you kinda get lost most of the time, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
that just reminds me, and this is like it's on topic. Have you ever heard of the story of the little boy who committed suicide because he thought his dad was Superman?
I did not. I did
No.
not. I've never heard
So this
of
is a true
that.
story.
Okay.
I forget this guy's name. He goes around the country speaking, doing public speaking and conferences. But this man thought that he needed to be Superman as a father.
Mm.
He could never let his son see his wounds, his pain, his anguish. He never showed that to his boy because he always wanted to be Superman,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
super dad. And around the age of like 12, 13 years old, they walked in and they found his son had committed suicide in his
Wow.
room.
That's really
And in the letter, it talked about how, I'm sorry, dad, I could never live up to the man that I knew you
yeah,
deserved me to be.
yeah.
And he goes around the country sharing the message that as fathers, we can not only portray this perfect image to our children, we have to let them in to see the pain so that way they
Absolutely.
understand I'm not Superman. I don't have it all together.
Mhm.
And he goes around the country sharing that with other men, and he's made it his mission, and I love what he says. He says it's I'm not perfect by any means, and we need to share that with our children, but we need to point them to the one that is.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So, I think one of the most important things these days is vulnerability
mm,
to a degree, right? Obviously, not too
yes.
vulnerable where you're gonna be exposing yourself, but being vulnerable so people have human connections.
Mm,
These days, especially people my age, human connection is far and few between dating apps, between Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook. You don't really get human connections. People don't just walk up to people anymore. So having a little bit of vulnerability if you make content and anything you do, having that little bit of vulnerability where people can connect to you will get you much further than being perfect.
mm. Would you say that that correlates to humility?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a part of the same boat,
Yeah.
where you just have to have a little bit of vulnerability and humility for people to really resonate with you because they know they're not perfect. They're gonna put on the same front you're putting on, but if you show them, "Look, I'm not this is not it's all kind of a front," they'll resonate with you a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Humility and authenticity.
Absolutely.
It's they often say that that's the opposite side of pride. So tell me this, what truth do you think, because we're talking, because the truth is there's no such thing as this perfect life. There's no such thing as a perfect balanced life that is the false image that you see on social media. So what truth do you think people your own age avoid? Like something that is really true that they avoid because it requires discipline.
They avoid more often than not following what they want to do.
Mm. Unpack that. What do you mean by that?
Most of the time, kids my age just understand, it could be their parents, it could be their friends around them, whatever the scenario is, but their mind is set. I have to do work a 9 to 5. I have to, kind of live the normal everyday person life. A lot of people don't believe that their dreams are even possible. A lot of people want to live somewhere else that's not the United States. They don't think that's possible. It's just like, how cool would it be to go to France?
Mm.
When they don't realize that it's possible. A lot of people say, how cool would it be to have a six pack? When they don't realize that it's possible. So, more often than not, it's nothing else other than that. They just don't think that those higher achieving things are possible when honestly it could be very easily achieved with a little
Mhm.
bit of discipline.
Now, do you think that they don't believe it because of their unbelief, or is it because they're afraid of the discipline it takes to attain it?
More often than not, it's unbelief.
Mm.
They just don't think it's possible. They see people like me, people like my peers that go places and travel far away and make money online, and they're just like, "Wow, that would be so cool," right? Or in reality, it's extremely possible, because people my age are doing it. People younger than me are doing it and are more successful doing it. So they just need to take a little bit of belief in themselves, honestly.
Mm. So, how does faith? Because I know you're to some degree. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're a man of faith.
Absolutely.
Now, do you think faith is misunderstood by people your own age?
Mhm.
And if so, how?
Yeah, yeah. Faith plays a humongous part of my life, right? But I'm going to sit here and say that faith plays a little bit different part of my life than most people's faith, honestly.
Mm.
I take faith at not face value, right? But I take faith and kind of use it as my principles for life. I kind of play by faith's rules, and I always know that there's a plan. And I think more than any other part of faith that has helped me the most is that I'll go through turmoil, right? Romans 8:18, I want to say. I don't know the verse exactly,
It's okay. You can
but I know what it
paraphrase.
means, and it
Yeah.
means a lot in my heart, right? It just basically says, don't worry. I mean, do you know the verse
Which
by
one? Go ahead.
Romans 8:18?
How's it go?
It's something like don't be afraid now because God has a plan for you, or it's like the trials, the tribulations you go through now, something like that.
Don't worry about anything. Instead, be with all things in supplication and thanksgiving, rejoice. Something along those
Something
lines. Huh?
basically what it means is that you're going to be okay. Right? You're going to go through a lot of hardships and you're going to go through a lot of negative things, but it means you're going to be okay. And I have gone through some serious situations that like mostly social and emotional situations that verse has just kept me freaking pushing through it, man. And it makes me run outside in the morning every day. It makes me go to the gym every day because I know when I put in the time right now that it's gonna pan out for me. Do you have the
Mm.
verse pulled up
Yeah.
for us?
Let's go to this. So you said Romans
I
8:18
think it's
specifically,
yes.
which says, "Yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory we will receive to us later. For all creation is waiting eagerly for what that future day when God will reveal who his children really are. Against its will, all creation was subjected to God's curse. But with eager hope, the creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. For we know that all creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. And we believers also groan, even though we have a Holy Spirit within us as a foretaste of future glory. For we long for our bodies to be released from sin and suffering. We too wait with eager hope for the day when God will give us our full rights as his adopted children, including the new bodies he has promised us." So, what I hear you're saying is your faith helps you understand that all things are going to work out the way God wants them to.
Exactly.
How has faith been misconstrued, though, in your opinion, when it comes to the youth today?
Yeah. So I think faith, a lot of kids my age just think faith is kind of a cut and dry handbook. You have to go, a humongous commitment into playing everything 100% by the book and that there's no mistakes to be had. When that's just not the case.
No.
God loves everybody. And if you commit your life to God, he's going to love you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's just the biggest misconception is that people think that I need to be perfect in order to be, a Christian, which it just 100% isn't the case. Everybody makes mistakes, everybody sins, but that's kind of it's part of the life.
Now, do you hear along those lines? Do you hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I believe in God," and just
a lot of people say they believe in a God.
they believe in a God.
Yes.
They believe in a God, and He loves me regardless, and I can do pretty much whatever I want, and it's gonna all be okay.
Yeah. It's not something I hear so much anymore because I
No?
think people have kind of wisened up to the idea of like that's kind of sounds a little crazy. Just being honest.
Do you know what you know what a paradox is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's something that that seems absurd,
Yeah.
but upon further investigation is actually true.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it seems crazy. That's what a paradox is.
Right. So I just think that faith is important to be a good person, right? Because what happens more often than not is when you commit to faith, you're saved in many situations. There's many situations I can think of where, God, I'm asking for this. God, I need a sign. That's what a lot of people say. God, I need a sign. And there's been situations where I come to God and say, Lord, like, help me. Honestly, help me find where I need to be right now. And he comes and helps me. And honestly, if it weren't for times like that, I don't know where I would be in my life or in my faith. But he's proved to me that it's real. So it's kind of hard to sit here and say, no, I don't believe in faith because I'll sit here and say, God, help me, send this to me. And it's not like, God send me $1 million. I don't think that's going to happen.
He
but
gives you what you need, not what you want.
He gives you what you need, not what you want. Exactly. So that's been a huge part of my life so far.
That just, what you were saying reminds me a whole lot of my journey, because I don't know if you know this, but when I was raised in an Acts based, truth based family, Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics. And it was always this: you have to do this, you have to do this, this is what you have to do, right? You have to say your prayers, you have to be good, you have to do this, you have to do that. And along the way, I realized that when you put truth before relationship, that always leads to rebellion.
Absolutely.
The relationship needs to come before the truth. That's Jesus' whole approach on things. So, but I want to push back on something you said earlier. You said a lot of people are just trying to be good, right? They're just trying to be the best person they can be. Do you believe that anybody is actually good?
Anybody's actually good. I think people are good-hearted. I think people have good intentions. I think people are good-minded. But to sit here and say that anybody's actually good.
Yeah.
Everybody sins. Everybody makes mistakes. So I think the whole idea of, first of all, social media and life kind of goes in a strange circle where you sit here and say, look, I'm not good. I make mistakes. And the guy next to me does the same thing. So why am I going to sit here and put myself above this guy, even though we're both in the same sin bracket? Right? So that's a good question. Is anybody really good? I think people are good-minded, good-hearted, good intentions, but how can anybody be good?
Exactly.
That's just good. How can anybody be good?
So the scripture tells us that we all fall short of that standard.
Yeah.
And I think that's always very interesting when people say God doesn't exist, but I'm a good person. Well, what is your standard of measurement when it comes to that? And the truth is, the biblical standard of what a good person is, I once heard a pastor say it this way: here's Hitler, here's Mother Teresa, and God's standard of what a good person is like 10 miles that way.
Yeah.
We're never, no matter how much we try to be Mother Teresa, we're never going to reach that standard of measurement, which is why we need.
Well, something that I harp on all the time, it's my favorite thing to say to anybody: you have to win your battles. Right? It's very important that you win your battles. If you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to eat in a caloric deficit, you have to win the battle of going to the gym. That's a battle one. You have to win the battle of going on a walk, getting your steps in. That's a battle one. You have to win the battle of eating good, not eating the junk food late at
Mm.
night. Those are battles won. And what happens when you stack your battles won is you begin to win the war.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So me and my friends talk about it all the time, every single day. Are you going to win your battle today? You know, are we going to go eat canes after we go play
That's a good
basketball for
saying. I
2
like that.
hours? It's I hold it very near and dear to my heart, right? So to me, if you want to be the best person, if you want to be the successful person, you just have to win 90% of your battles,
Mm.
right? Because life has to be balanced. Otherwise, you know, perfectionism isn't even real. So you're going to mess up. So if there's no balance there and you don't give yourself any leeway, then you're going to feel like, man, I messed up. I ate X, Y, and Z. And I feel like I'm off the rails now. When in reality, what usually happens and what happens to me all the time is I go 7 days, I'm doing good, I'm winning most of my battles, and then the weekend comes, and then, you know, you eat a little junk food, you get a little slice of cake in your system, then you feel, man, I just lost, right? I
Mm.
feel like I lost the war, but in reality, you didn't. So it's very important. That's the most important thing to me right now in my life is I need to stack my battles. I need to win my battles.
Now, talking about battles,
Mhm.
how do you win the battles in your mind?
Mhm.
And what battles do you, what does that battle look like when it comes to your mindset?
So the mental battles
Yeah.
are the best and the toughest, right? Because a mental victory means so much more than a physical victory sometimes, right? My biggest mental battle my whole life has been with food. I love to eat, honestly, and that just has to be something that I understand is like, okay, look, I have this food in front of me. Usually it's something fast, like fast food has been the biggest one in my life, right? So the battle mentally is that, okay, I'm going to eat this food. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be food. For me, it's been food. I'm going to do this thing, right? If I do this thing right now, I'm going to feel amazing. I'm going to feel great. But after these next 15 minutes, I'm going to feel horrible. And that's a battle lost, right? So when it comes to mentally winning the battle, you just have to say, am I going to prioritize myself right now or am I going to prioritize myself in the future?
Mm.
And most of the time, if you can have the clarity to say myself in the future will come first because I know I'm going to be happy in a week, that's how you win the battle.
Mm.
And that kind of comes with the mental discourse of that.
So, great point. Aside from food,
Mhm.
have you ever felt like God's pulling you one way while your own personal ambitions and your desires and your own dreams are pulling you in a different direction?
Yeah. I'm going to get a little vulnerable on the
Uh-huh.
podcast, right? A few months ago, I was talking to this girl, beautiful girl. She's an amazing girl. But God told me, and I felt it, and I don't even know if I told her she would believe me,
Mm.
right? But I was like, my business needs to come first. My family needs to come first, and I just don't feel like I can do this right now. And I don't know exactly why, but I felt such a greater purpose of being not in that relationship because of God. Because this woman was almost everything you could ask for, honestly, which it doesn't even make sense, right? But I felt this overbearing, like greater sense of purpose that I was almost not destined, but I needed to either be in a better place for myself, to provide for my family. And honestly, I asked God, I said, God, lead me in the right direction. And
Mm.
that's one of those moments where it's like God shows up almost physically, where he puts this strong feeling of uh,
Conviction.
conviction. He puts a strong feeling of conviction to go one way when every other part of my life is telling me to go this way. And since I've made that decision, I felt much better in business. I've gotten healthier and my mind has been more clear and I'm ready. I feel like right now I'm turning a corner in my life that is going to change my life forever.
Mm. Now, do you feel, had you gone down the other path, that you would have potentially idolized her and kind of put that relationship above God and the things he wanted for you?
Yes. I think that was a part of the problem. No issue of her own. She was
Mm.
amazing, right? She's a great person. But I think that um, if I were to stay in that relationship, the biggest issue to me is that I would have been too comfortable,
Mm.
and I'm not ready to be comfortable. Honestly, that could sound corny to a lot of people, but it's the honest truth, is that being comfortable in your life doesn't always bring you anywhere. When you're you grow the most when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Truth be told, in everything you do.
All
So
growth.
all growth comes from being uncomfortable. So I have a lot of pride in being uncomfortable.
Mm.
It's something that I actually look forward to some days. Like after we finish filming this, I'm gonna go on a run, and I find that I thrive in being uncomfortable because that's the time that I feel the best because I'm growing.
Mm. What is the loudest negative voice that you have to silence in your own head?
Fear.
Fear. Unpack that.
Now, I listened to a great man. His name is Michael Smoke, Higher Up Wellness. Love the guy. And he says something along the lines of, wherever fear is, you need to follow. Because usually, in people that kind of have this higher achiever mindset, you get scared of things that you know might succeed. For example, when I was 16, I picked up a camera. When I started using this camera and shooting sports games, which has been my career so far, I was scared. What are these people going to think about my quality? How am I going to run a business? I don't know how to run a business. But what happened is you gross over, 6 figures in sales before you turn 18. And I followed that fear and it made me into something.
Mm.
So more than anything, I get scared and I'm fearful of what's going to happen to me in the future if what if it doesn't work out? What am I going to do? But I know, kind of tying back into this thing where I love to be uncomfortable, I know wherever that fear is, I need to go. And if I don't go there, then it's the highest probability of success if I go towards the fear, which doesn't even sound right, but time and time again, it's proven, not even just in my world, in many successful entrepreneurs' world, if you're scared about going into something, just mentally, obviously, if you have conditions like money, different story. But mentally, if you look at a situation and say, I'm kind of scared, what if I'm not going to be able to fulfill it, X, Y, and Z? That's usually where you need to run towards.
So, how would you encourage somebody who's wrestling with that fear to overcome it?
A lot of people, this is what you need to understand, right? You're going to be okay. Let's think about the worst case scenario in anything, right? You're homeless. Your parents kick you out, blah, 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 which for 98% of people is never going to be the case, right? Worst case, let's say you quit your job, you have to go back home and live with your parents and follow your dreams of, opening a coffee shop. Cool. It doesn't work out. You lose the permits, you lose the funding, X, Y, whatever happens, right? The worst case scenario is you have to go get another job if you're at your parents' house, right? The worst case scenario is you're living at your parents' house for most people, right? So what a lot of people need to understand is that you can go towards the fear because it's all going to be okay. The risk, you have to take the risk sometimes. And that's something that a lot of people say, and it's almost gotten to this corny thing where, take the risk, right? But it's extremely true because without risk, most of the time, there's never going to be a reward. Truly. Unfortunately, we can't just kind of tightrope but it has to be that way.
That reminds me of, have you ever heard of the formula for fear and overcoming it? I just want to write it down to make sure I'm not getting it backwards.
I've never heard it. No, not sure.
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, they hired a trainer.
Oh, he wrote a book?
He wrote a book.
Yeah, I read that book.
What was the book?
Legend, maybe?
Kobe wrote one of those, but I think it's like No Excuses or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You often remember the nuggets from the book. You don't remember all the things.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful thing about what we do, somebody out here might not remember who we are, but they might remember something about what we say.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the book, he talks about how we have to understand the formula for fear. What happens to most people is that they're afraid, so they don't take action, and then that shapes their identity.
Absolutely.
I'm afraid of being uncomfortable, so I'm going to eat the donut. Now I'm a fat guy.
Yep.
Right? And then that's my identity. He says if we understand and we can flip the formula and start with our identity, right?
Yeah.
I'm a healthy person. I'm a hard worker. I'm a successful person. I do things now. I am obedient. I take action. When we can learn to rewire the neural pathways in our own head and also drown out the limiting beliefs that we grew up with, the lies that we were told as a kid from other people, and rewire our identity first, then take the action, then that will produce our feelings. He says it's feelings, action, identity, and it needs to be identity, actions, feelings.
Yeah.
If you take action, that will shape your feelings. Do not allow your feelings to shape your actions.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because I remember reading that book probably last year around this time. I think we're talking about the same book. I don't remember what it's called. I'm gonna go re-listen to it now that we talked about it, because it was a great book. I hold that very close to me, though. It's very important that your identity comes first, because, like you said, if you have your feelings come first and your actions shape your identity, when you make a negative action, it's going to shape your identity. But if your identity is first, what is it called?
Tim Grover.
Tim Grover.
Relentless.
Relentless.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to go reread that. When you let your actions shape your identity, what begins to happen is when you have a negative action, it becomes a negative identity choice. And that doesn't really even make sense, right? So if I sit here and say, which I believe I am, you have to believe it, I'm a healthy person, I work out, and I'm a successful person because I do the thing now. And, you know, I do the thing now, and I'm drawing a blank, but you get the idea, right? I do the thing now. When I have the decision in front of me, if I already sit here and say out loud to you that I am a successful person, not only is there social credibility, because you're going to sit here and say, if you sit here and watch me not do the thing now, and I told you I'm a successful person, you're going to be like, well, are you a successful person? But when you say it out loud, it also makes you believe that you're a successful person, if that makes sense, because you're putting it into the air and your body kind of understands that to a degree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And along those lines, I heard, the good book talks about how we're to, and I'm completely paraphrasing this because it's not the actual scripture, but it says something along the lines of plan like you're going to live for 100 years, but live each day as if you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Each day has its own troubles. Do not worry about tomorrow. And it just reminds me of what you were talking about earlier of how, and even right here, we might make an abundance of mistakes today, but we have a fresh, brand new day, and it's a clean slate. At any moment, we can flip the switch, change our mindset, change the way we think, change our perspective and how we're looking at something, and completely decide and make a decision to take a chance to change our lives. On Sunday, the pastor was talking, and I love this. He says, our relationship with God, from the moment we decide to give our lives to him, is like a father-son relationship. You look at a toddler and think about your kids in the future. I can't tell you how true this is. We go to the grocery store, or we go to Walmart, Target. They want this toy.
Yeah.
They're not getting this toy. They start to, because I know it's not good for them for whatever reason, whatever the toy is. It's not good for them. They want a toy that's not good for them. And you see the father, the image of the father holding the son's hand, dragging him away from the supermarket. And that's the image of us with God. We're not holding on to God.
Yeah.
He's pulling us because we've already made the decision that we're his.
Yeah.
So as we go through life, we make all these mistakes, and the process of sanctification is a lifelong process. What happens is that conviction slowly starts to take root as you walk with him. So,
wait, I just want to
go ahead.
backtrack on something that you said, is that at any point in time, you can flip the switch. I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand, which is very, very, very important. It doesn't take a new year. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people sit here and say this year, X, Y, and Z. It doesn't take that. What nobody understands is if you want to make any major life change, you have to win the small battle. Every single time that the battle comes across from you, that's how you're going to change. Because you have to think about it like this. If I want to make a massive change, and I want to scale my business to $2 million a month, that is not going to happen by any decision that I make tomorrow that will come to fruition the next day.
Yeah.
But what will happen is the decision I make right now will help with the decision I make tomorrow. And if 80% of those battles are wins, then you can make $2 million a month as a business, right?
Yeah.
So at any given point, You can sit here and make the decision between A and B, and A will be the path of goodness and A will be the path of negativity. And that is so important that if you want to change your life, you just need to win the battle. You just need to win the next battle.
Yeah.
And whatever it is.
And I think there's this beautiful image of a loving father that wants to give you everything you want. And sometimes the answer is no, because he knows it's not good for us.
Absolutely.
Like, I want my kids to be able to eat ice cream and cookies all day and not have just a crash and be unhealthy. So I have to say no sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
So there's this picture of this vertical relationship with him and ourselves, and there's this unification. But then what ends up happening is, and I found this to be true so often, there's this horizontal relationship that we have with others. God often answers our prayers through relationships and influences and role models and other people that come into our lives, which is, and I believe we're all called to be a Joshua and a Moses. We're all called to be poured into, and then at the same time give back to others, and that's how it works. And that's why I applaud you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
So in your life, who has shaped your faith and your mindset the most?
Our father, since we're brothers, our father, but my father, he has set an amazing example because he sets the example by action. And I think that's more important than any type of words that you can sit here and tell to anybody. Because as a father, as a mentor, you can sit here and I can tell you as much as I want to about how to do X, Y, and Z. But if you sit there and do it the opposite way, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because you're going to sit here and tell me how to do it, but you're doing it another way. So why should I listen to you?
Hypocriticism.
Absolutely. So
hypocrisy.
To me, my dad just showed me the way. We had a lot of conversations, but he showed me the way of success and how to live a fulfilled and sustained life. And that's probably my biggest role model.
So, last question. Well, before we get to the last question, do you think real role models are rare today? Do you think real role models are rare today, or are they just harder to recognize?
I think they're rare. They are much rarer than. Well, let's kind of take a deeper dive into this. A role model to a lot of kids could be somebody like LeBron, right? LeBron James, Michael Jordan, average role models. I want to be like Michael Jordan when I grow up. The issue is that there's no real substance other than greatness there. Both of those role models have a lot of issues off the court, and they only see what's on the court. And not saying that they're bad people, you know. When you think of a role model of somebody that you want to be, you want to kind of think of them as well-rounded, right? So that's why I think social media is a great tool, because you can kind of invest in role models because you could have a lot of them, and it kind of molds you into the type of person that you want to be by accentuating your personality through your role models, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, last question. If you could leave one message for people your age, what truth would you want them to hear, even if it's uncomfortable?
I have two major things. We've talked about them, but I'm going to nail them in here because they're so important. They are so important. If you want to change your life, you have to win the next battle. You have to, whatever it is. If you want to lose weight, if you want to build a company, if you want to be great in anything, you have to win your next battle. And the next thing is that nothing is impossible. You have to understand that there's people that have done it before you, younger than you, in worse conditions, and they've made it, and they've been successful. So there won't ever be an excuse to whatever you want to do in anything in life. And that's my message to the youth. That's my message to my peers.
So I'm sure somebody out there who's listening to this is thinking, how do I know what my next battle is? I'm searching, especially at 19. Like, I remember when I was 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do other than that. I just always wanted to be having fun.
Yeah.
So how does one know which battle, like which direction, where to go when they feel stuck?
I'd love to talk about this. Do we have time?
Like, I remember when I was 19, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I just wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
And now as a father, I look at my kids and it's just like, I can see how that starts from such a young age. It starts from the moment they're born. They just want to have fun.
Yeah.
and all their priorities and the discipline. It's kind of like, I just want to enjoy the donut.
Yeah.
That's what, and I just want it. So, how does one find what's the right next battle, for that person who's searching?
So, two things. I love to have fun. I put enjoying my life above a lot of things, but here's the switch. My enjoyment of life does not always come from the donut. My enjoyment of life comes from completing the hard thing, because there's two types of dopamine in that. There's the cheap dopamine and there's the high of dopamine that you get from doing something hard, right? So let me ask you a question, right? When you were 19 and you were having fun, partying, whatever the scenario may be,
Too much.
was the case that you would go home sometimes and feel like, man, I'm not doing anything with my life?
All the time.
Cool, right? This is a humongous common issue,
Well,
especially in Nevada.
In the beginning,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel that way. And I'll say this, in the beginning, I felt like Superman.
Yeah.
And over time, that starts to become hollow, and the thing I thought would satisfy me no longer did.
Absolutely. And I see it happen hundreds of times, right? What happens, especially in Nevada. You go to University of Nevada, Reno, that's all it is. It's just partying in bad things for the most part, right? So you see it all the time. Kids will go to school, they'll go to college, and they'll pay all this money to just party. And what happens is that people begin to think like, yo, what am I doing? I'm paying $40,000 to do nothing, right? So if you're asking me the question of where should that where is their next battle coming from? You need to understand two things. First of all, you need to understand what actually makes you happy. If you don't understand that, it's important that you go and try things. There's so many things in this world that you can try. And the reality is you can make money doing anything, truthfully. So that's step one. You need to find something that you like to do a lot. Step two, you need to do it more. And what happens with 90% of the people that party too much is that they're moldable. They're very easily moldable because they don't have anything. They're excited. I'm bored. Let's go party. I get drunk. And then it's just like, oh, that was fun. Let me do it again. And then after 2 years of going to school, after 4 years, after you graduate, and now there's no more parties for you to go to, what am I doing? Right? So if you are somebody that's kind of, I go to parties a lot and I don't really I just feel kind of lost, which so many people, you need to find something that you like to do, healthy. So many things, skiing. Dude, you could go 90,000 things, skiing, basketball, sports, hobbies, pottery, and anything. And you need to do more of it. Because what happens is when you get so good at doing any skill, you can begin to sell it. And that's how you can start a career. And that's how you can turn your life around, right?
Mm.
But the reason that it happens is because people are so moldable and they're easy to get attached to the devil's
Schemes.
workings. Yeah, schemes.
Well, two things I would add to that before we wrap up is, number one, I believe every single person has a gift.
Absolutely.
And as you try to do different things, eventually you're going to find out what you're gifted at. And then you run with that. The other thing is, I wholeheartedly believe that every teenage person, and I think this is what, I yearn for. Every teenage person or young, or everybody, period, regardless of the age, but especially there's this point in our lives where we go through this phase called the cowboy phase. Tends to be right after high school, during high school, college. That's the cowboy phase, as some authors call it. And in that phase is the phase where we need to go out and do these activities that transition us from boy to man. I mean, if you think about it, in the United States of America, what is the passage of maturity? At what point are you a man? According to who? Is it 18 because you could smoke, 21 because you could drink, 18 because now you've graduated, you can go to the army? Is it 25 because now you can rent a car? Or is it 12 because now you can play R-rated games on Xbox? Depending on who you ask, being a man or an adult is different, but we go through this point where it's called the cowboy phase. And what I would encourage anybody who's listening that's searching for that is, it's not just about a role model, because a role model is one thing, but it's a mentor. Find yourself a mentor, somebody that's been down the path that you want to go down, that can pour into you and help you avoid different pitfalls.
Yeah.
So,
And here's what I'll interject with that.
yeah,
Just one last thing. It's hard to find a mentor, but if you don't have a mentor, you can look at the Bible.
yeah,
And I think that if you're lost and you don't have any mentor, you can turn to God, right? And it's not even a thing of I'm sitting here and converting, I'm trying to convert people to Christianity for X, Y, and Z. I'm sitting here and telling you the truth and my honest living that you can turn to God because he'll sit here and be a great mentor to you and he'll
yeah.
help you.
But if you go through the Bible, what you see time and time again is that God uses other people
Yeah.
to disciple. So what ends up happening is definitely start there, but as you walk with Christ, he's going to convict you and he's going to make it clear as day that you need people to disciple you.
Yes.
Those
Absolutely.
those physical relationship, mentorship is a
Very
biblical
important.
principle from the beginning with Abraham, Moses, Joshua, all the way to Paul and Timothy and John, like all the
Yeah,
way at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end. It's just clear as day. So one thing that I've learned about mentors is you go to God and you ask him to
Exactly.
send somebody into your life. Then you look for people, and then you go knock on those doors. You ask, you seek, and you knock. And God, I believe, will provide somebody to help mentor you and walk you along
Yeah.
that path. So, any final thoughts
Um,
for anybody who's listening?
guys, win your battles today.
Win your
Make
battles.
sure you win your battles.
So, if you're listening to this and you're around our age, I mean, we got a little bit of an age gap,
Yeah.
19 and 36, or honestly, any age. This conversation is a reminder that mindset isn't built in comfort and truth isn't always popular. The lies that sound good often cost the most, and the hard path usually shapes the strongest people. Faith, discipline, and honest self reflection are not weaknesses, they're anchors. Win your battles.
Win your battles, guys.